2018 Toyota Highlander, front brake pads and rotors. First you need to jack it up to support it properly, and then you'll need to get the tires off. Those are 21 millimeter, the lug nuts. And now you need to get the caliper off. It's got two bolts holding it on there, and there's two 14 millimeter head bolts right here and right here. That's what they look like. And you just take a little screwdriver, pry them off a little bit. Take it off, look at it. Make sure the boots are good, not torn, or have any fluid coming out of them. If they're torn or have any fluid coming out of them, replace them. Next you need to do is remove the caliper bracket. It has two 17 millimeters bolts in the back. One here and one there. They look like that. Okay, remove both of those. You also got these spring clips holding the pads on there. Usually they're rusted in there. So take them out. Okay, and you can remove them. All right, once you got this caliper bracket off, you need to get the rotor off. Most of the time the rotors are bonded onto the hub. Spray some penetrant around it and just smack the rotor with a decent sized hammer. And the vibration and all that would bust it loose. Once you got the rotor off, you need to clean this hub, get all the rust off of here, because rust expands. And you got the rotor on there, it's not exactly sitting flush, true. True means it's spinning properly. It doesn't have any shakes in it. So if you got rust in here, you got high and low spots, and then it causes the rotor to wobble when it's driving down the road, and you'll feel that through your brake pedal. So do what you can to make them nice and shiny like that. I used a little disc that goes over the studs. You can get those at Amazon. And then you get the Rolo discs that go on here. You clean them up. That's what you want it to look like. When you get it nice and cleaned up, and you put a fine film of anti-seize all around it. And then you need to go and get your caliper brackets. These caliper slide pin, they should be able to turn nice and freely. These are a little sticky. So you need to pull these out, clean them up, and put some new Seal Glide in it. Get your pads out. Remove your abundant hardware clips. And then you want to clean up inside there, get all that rust out of there, and you want to paint it. If these are frozen and you can't turn them with a wrench, then you might as well replace the caliper bracket. And if you're going to do that, you might as well put another caliper on it. They're not too badly priced. Okay, so now also remember what side you got, right and left, and make sure you put these clips on the pads in your hardware kit. So keep them right to left so you know which side the pad that clip goes on, anti-rudder clip. Okay, caliper brackets. Need to clean them up. Get them all cleaned up. All right. Pull your pins out. One of them has a little bumper on it, a little rubber. That goes on the bottom, okay? And then mark it. Goes on the bottom and mark it. So that way you don't forget. All right. What you're gonna do is you wanna clean these up. Put some new Seal Glide on them, wipe them all over the pins, stick them in there, turn them around and twist them, pull them back out, put a little bit more on. Do not pack inside here, because then if you'll push this in, you'll try to compress it and you won't be able to compress it. So put them on the pin. All right. So when you got it all done, as you push these in, twist them, and make sure you put some around here, this little groove, so it gets on the boot. Get a little bit of lube on that boot. And then once you get the paint on there, let it dry. Then you can put your clips in there. Okay. Remember, the little insulator goes on the bottom. Mark it. If your little grooves on your pins are full of rust, or your grooves on the bracket where this little boot goes, well, can't get inside it, but inside here you need to get a screwdriver, a little screwdriver inside there, and scrape all the rust out. And on that little groove, you can use a razor, a hacksaw blade, and clean it up. Next, you want to get your C-clamp. If you got a C-clamp or a special tool, push the pistons back in. Use an old pad, put it in there, and get your C-clamp and tighten it up. And make sure that your line is not pinched to restrict the flow of the fluid back inside there, into the master. If you got both sides pushed in, you got a lot of fluid in there, you might get some squishing out of the reservoir onto the ground, which is normal. You'll clean that up after you get all done. All right, push the pistons back in. You got your anti-seize on your hub. Now you can do is get your rotors ready. You need to get your rotors out of the package and clean the shipping oil off of them with some soap and water, or some Windex, glass cleaner, or a little bit of maybe some degreaser, but Windex works the best for me. Okay, clean up your rotors. Use Windex. Clean up the rotors, get the shipping oil off of them. Put your bundle clips back inside your caliper brackets. Make sure you install them properly. Make sure they're fully seated. Not crooked, like that one. All right, then you go to your pads. Match your pads up right and left, right and left. Now you got these anti-rattle clips. Make sure you put them on. If your package didn't come with them, you need to take the ones off the old ones and put them on there. Otherwise, the pad will sit inside there and vibrate back and forth when you hit the brakes. Okay? And take note that this is the inner and this is the outer because of the circle from the pistons, okay? All right, so when you get the rotors on, put a pair of vice grips on the stud to help just hold it from falling off onto your foot, and just keeping it on there to help you put on your caliper bracket. And note, see the little flower for the brake pads? I mean, it's a special kind of compound, so do not use brake clean on your rotors, because the residue from the brake clean will get into the pads and cause them to deteriorate faster. Okay, you got your caliper brackets mounted, got the bolts snugged up. Now you need to torque them to 79 foot-pounds. I have no idea why they're 79. They're going to be 78 or 80. But anyway, 79 foot-pounds for the caliper bracket bolts. There's 2 of them. And next thing you need to do is get your pads, put your pads in there. You see these springs? So what you're going to do is push the pad in at an angle and like that, okay? So make sure you get the right pad for the outer and the right pad for the inner. So this is the outer pad. The inner clip goes on the top. Push it in there so it's pushed up inside there, because it just acts like a little spring. Push up against the side springs, okay, and then just push it in there like that. And do the same thing with the inner one. Okay, both pads are in. Use a light to make sure you can see. Putting the inside one in, and remember, don't forget about that little bit of an angle. Once you get them in there, then you want to put your pad springs in. If your hardware kit didn't come with it, then go ahead and use the old ones. Hopefully it did, and hopefully the old ones are still good. And then next you need to do is put your caliper on. Squeeze the pads together with one hand, or use the other hand and work the caliper on there, and watch out for the slide pins. And also make sure you don't have your line twisted. Make sure it's a clean, smooth loop right over here, not curly cued, okay? As you're putting the caliper on, you want to squeeze the pad and push the pins in so you can get the caliper on over everything. Do not force anything, just work around and feel all your pins, push them in so you can get the caliper around the outside of them. And once you've done that, then you put your bolts in, caliper bolts, snug them up, and then you want to torque them to 22 foot-pounds, okay? And to make sure your line's not twisted. It looks good. Okay, you got both sides done like this, exactly the same. Then you can remove your C-clamp. And then next what you need to do is put your tires on, torque your lug nuts to 90 foot-pounds, lower it down to the ground, double check your torque on them, go inside the vehicle, start it up, push the pedal to the floor a couple times, make sure you got a good firm pedal, shut it off, go inside the hood, wipe off your master cylinder cap area, take the master cylinder cap off, top off your brake fluid, make sure that you look and see what kind of fluid it takes. If it's a 4 or a 3, it should be marked on the cap or the side. If it's not, you go inside the owner's manual. But anyway, so you did all that, and then you go inside, make sure you have a good brake pedal before you put it in drive or reverse. And make sure you pump up that pedal. And that's it. And you've done your front brakes. If I helped you out doing the front brakes, hopefully you can subscribe to me. If you already have, I appreciate it, and I thank you.